The derelict station floated in the darkness like a forgotten monument. It orbited a dead star that had burned out long before most current civilizations had learned to walk upright. Commander Thicksal guided his exploration vessel closer, his compound eyes studying the ancient structure through the viewport. He had spent 30 years digging through the ruins of extinct species. This felt different. The station was massive, built in a style no one recognized. Its hull bore scorch marks from weapons that no longer existed. Emergency lights still blinked in some sections, their power sources somehow refusing to die even after thousands of years of abandonment. Reading multiple energy signatures inside, his pilot announced. At least 40 separate sources. All different types. Thicksal clicked his mandibles together. That many different energy signatures meant different technologies. Different civilizations. But why would so many different species leave their data in one place? Prepare the boarding team, he ordered. Full environmental suits. We don't know what's waiting inside. His assistant Krell practically vibrated with excitement. The young researcher had been pushing for this mission since they first detected the station. He had more ambition than caution, which worried Thicksal. The commander had seen too many eager young scientists die in ancient ruins that they didn't respect enough. The boarding airlocks shrieked as they cut through metal that had been sealed for millennia. The team floated through corridors filled with frozen atmosphere crystals that sparkled in their helmet lights. Some sections still had gravity, powered by systems that refused to shut down. Others were completely dark and silent. They found the archive in the center of the station. It was a vast circular chamber with 47 individual storage units arranged around the walls. Each unit glowed with a different color, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. These are data cores, Krell said, his voice tight with excitement over the comm channel. Preserved in stasis fields. Sir, some of these are older than our entire civilization. Thicksal approached the nearest core carefully. It was crystalline, hovering inside a field of blue light. The symbols on its surface were in a language he had never seen. Can you translate it? The station has a translation matrix, Krell replied, working at a nearby console that somehow still functioned. It's designed to convert everything into a common format. Whoever built this place wanted these messages to be understood. Give me a moment. The translation took an hour. When the first message appeared on their display screens, Thicksal felt his blood chill. Never wake the humans. Let them sleep in ignorance of what they were. Krell immediately pulled up the second core. Different language, different civilization. Same message. Do not disturb the third planet. They called themselves humanity. They must not remember. The third core was even more direct. We failed to stop them. We could only convince them to stop themselves. If you find this, leave them alone. They translated all 47 cores. Every single one contained a warning about Earth. About humans. About a species that had to be left undisturbed. The messages came from civilizations scattered across thousands of light years and separated by millennia. Some were species that still existed in diminished form. Most were completely extinct. This doesn't make sense, Krell said as they compiled the data back on their ship. Current scans of Earth show a primitive civilization. They barely have satellites. Their fastest ships use chemical combustion. They haven't even left their own solar system properly. Thicksal studied the data core readings again. These warnings are between 3,000 and 12,000 years old. Whatever humanity was then, they clearly aren't now. Exactly, Krell said. Which means we should investigate. Sir, imagine what we could learn from a species that once inspired this much fear. What happened to them? How did they fall so far? The archaeological value alone is incalculable. The journey back to Council headquarters took 3 weeks. Thicksal spent most of that time reading the translated warnings over and over. Some were short and direct. Others were longer, almost desperate in tone. One message from a species called the Drenoke was particularly disturbing. We tried to destroy their colony ships. We failed. Not because they were stronger, but because they would not stop coming. We destroyed 10 ships. 20 more came. We destroyed 100. 1,000 more followed. They did not have better weapons or faster ships. They simply refused to accept that they could lose. In the end, we surrendered. We agreed to never enter their territory again. We counted ourselves lucky that they accepted our surrender. Another message was simpler. They sleep now. Thank the stars they sleep. Never wake them. The Galactic Archaeological Council met in a vast chamber on their headquarters station. Representatives from 200 species filled the tiered seating. Thicksal presented his findings on the central display, watching the reactions ripple through the audience. Council Director Vren, a tall being made of crystalline structures, spoke first. These warnings are ancient. Our current intelligence shows Earth is home to approximately 8 billion humans. They have basic technology. Nuclear fission. Simple computers. Chemical rockets. They have not achieved faster-than-light travel. They pose no credible threat to any council species. Then why did 47 different civilizations leave warnings? Thixal asked. Species that had nothing in common, separated by thousands of years. They all agreed on one thing. Leave humanity alone. The chamber erupted in debate. Some representatives dismissed the warnings as primitive superstition. Others demanded that Earth's entire solar system be placed under permanent quarantine. A few suggested more extreme measures. Krell stood, his scales shimmering under the chamber lights. Honorable council members, these warnings are thousands of years old. Whatever humanity was, they clearly aren't anymore. Something happened to them. They regressed. They forgot. We have an opportunity here to learn from a species that once dominated this region of space. The archaeological and anthropological value is beyond measure. We should send an observation team. To wake them, another council member challenged. To observe them, Krell corrected. From a safe distance. To understand what they were and what they became. Knowledge, not contact. The debate lasted for hours. Finally, Vren called for a vote. The result was narrow but clear. An observation team would be sent to Earth's solar system. They would maintain stealth. They would not make contact. They would simply watch and learn. As the council chamber emptied, Thixal stared at the display showing Earth's location. A small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system. It looked so peaceful from here. So harmless. He thought about the warnings again. 47 civilizations. All saying the same thing. Never wake them. But the vote was cast. The mission was approved. The observation team would leave within the month. Thixal just hoped they weren't making a terrible mistake. The observation ship entered Earth's solar system 3 months after the council vote. Captain Thixal kept the vessel cloaked, running on minimal power as they drifted past the outer planets. Jupiter's massive form dominated their sensors briefly before they moved closer to the inner system. Preliminary scans confirmed the intelligence reports, the sensor officer reported. The third planet shows technological signatures consistent with early industrial spaceflight. Multiple satellites in orbit. A small space station. No weaponry capable of threatening ships beyond their immediate orbital space. Krell moved between stations on the bridge, his excitement barely contained. Look at their communication networks. They're still using electromagnetic radiation for everything. No quantum entanglement. No faster-than-light communication at all. They're completely isolated. Thixal studied the blue and green planet on the main display. White clouds swirled across its surface. He could see lights on the dark side where human cities blazed against the night. It looked beautiful. Peaceful. Nothing like the nightmare the ancient warnings described. Take us into high orbit, he ordered. Passive scans only. I want to know everything about them before we even consider active scanning. The ship spent 2 weeks watching Earth. They intercepted television broadcasts and internet signals. They listened to radio chatter between the space station and ground control. They watched humans go about their daily lives, completely unaware they were being observed. They're remarkable in some ways, the communications officer noted. They've only had electronic computers for about 80 years, but look at what they've achieved. Global communication networks. Genetic engineering. Artificial intelligence in its early stages. They're also constantly fighting each other, another officer added. I've counted 15 active military conflicts happening right now. They can't seem to exist without warfare. That caught Thixal's attention. He reviewed the data carefully. Humans had nations, and those nations were frequently in conflict. They had weapons capable of destroying their entire planet, yet somehow they hadn't used them. They balanced on a knife's edge between cooperation and destruction. Maybe that's what the warnings were about, Krell suggested. A warlike species. Dangerous to themselves and others. Then why did they survive? Thixal asked. Species that are only good at war usually destroy themselves. Humans have been around for at least 200,000 years according to their own records. That's longer than most civilizations in the Council. The real discovery came when they started scanning the outer regions of the solar system. Krell had insisted on mapping the asteroid belt and the distant ice fields. He said it would give them insight into human resource utilization. What they found instead were anomalies. Hundreds of them. Objects that didn't match natural asteroid composition. Structures that were too regular to be random space debris. Most were inactive, their power signatures long dead. But they were clearly artificial. These are thousands of years old, Krell said, analyzing the data. Some of them are more than 10,000 years old. But the construction style, it matches human engineering principles. Not their current technology, but the underlying patterns are the same. Thixal felt that chill in his blood again. Are you saying humans built these? I'm saying whoever built these thought like humans do. Used mathematics like humans use. Designed systems the way human brains conceptualize problems. Krell brought up a comparison chart. Look at this. Every species has a unique approach to engineering. We build in spirals. The Vren build in crystals. The Morlocks build in nested spheres. These structures use linear redundancy patterns with modular backup systems. It's exactly how modern humans design their space station. They found more evidence scattered throughout the system. Derelict ships in the outer asteroid belt, their hulls degraded by millions of years of micrometeorite impacts. A facility on one of Saturn's moons, buried under ice but still detectable. Satellites around Mars that had long since stopped functioning. All of it was ancient. All of it was human. They had an empire, Thixal said quietly. The warnings were true. Humanity wasn't always confined to Earth. Krell pulled up his analysis. Based on the distribution of structures and their age, I estimate humans had active presence throughout this solar system between 8,000 and 12,000 years ago. Then something happened. They abandoned everything. Withdrew to Earth. Let their technology decay. But why? The sensor officer asked. Why would any species voluntarily regress? No one had an answer. The observation team spent another week scanning and cataloging the ancient human structures. They found evidence of mining operations on asteroids that had been abandoned halfway through extraction. They found the remains of what might have been a shipyard near Jupiter's orbit. They found satellites around every major body in the system, all dead now, all positioned as if they'd once been part of a vast defensive network. There's something else, Krell said on the 15th day of observation. I've been analyzing the pattern of human cities on Earth. They avoid certain areas. Specifically, they avoid 7 major regions that show unusual geological signatures. He brought up the scans. 7 locations scattered across Earth's surface showed signs of massive underground structures. They were deep, shielded by rock and earth, but the density patterns were wrong for natural formations. Bunkers, Thixal realized. They built bunkers and buried them. Not just bunkers, Krell corrected. These are enormous. Each one is the size of a major city. They're sealed. Powered down. But they're there. The implications were staggering. Humanity had once spanned their solar system. They had built defenses and infrastructure on a massive scale. Then they had deliberately abandoned it all, retreated to their home planet, and buried their advanced technology underground. They had chosen to forget. We need active scans of those bunkers, Krell insisted. We need to know what's inside them. What they're hiding. Absolutely not, Thixal said firmly. Active scanning could be detected. We're here to observe, not to interact. But Krell was insistent. Sir, this is the discovery of a lifetime. We found evidence of a civilization that willingly regressed. That's never been documented before. We need to understand why. What they left behind could answer everything. Thixal hesitated. The scientist in him wanted to know. Needed to know. But the warnings echoed in his mind. Never wake them. Let them sleep. One scan, he finally agreed. One quick active scan of the nearest structure. Then we withdraw and analyze the data from a safe distance. Krell worked quickly, focusing their sensors on a bunker located under what humans called the Australian continent. The active scan pulse lasted less than 3 seconds. They received a flood of data about the structure's composition, its depth, its internal organization. They also received something else. A response. Alarms blared across the observation ship's bridge. The sensor officer shouted in panic. Energy spike. The structure is powering up. It's not just the bunker. There are systems activating all over the planet. And in orbit. And throughout the system. On the main display, Thixal watched in horror as ancient satellites began to glow with renewed power. The derelict structures they'd catalogued were waking up. On Earth's surface, the buried bunkers were opening. Get us out of here, he ordered. Maximum stealth. Now. But it was too late. Their active scan had triggered something. A system that had slept for 10,000 years. A defense network that humanity had built and then deliberately shut down. And now, because of one curious scan, they had turned it back on. Krell stared at his console, his scales pale. Sir, I'm receiving a broadcast. It's in multiple languages. It's repeating on all frequencies. What does it say? Warning. Defense protocols activated. Initiating awakening sequence. All Guardian systems responding. Threat detected. Humanity will respond. Thixel sat down heavily in his command chair. They had been warned. 47 times they had been warned. Never wake them. The emergency broadcast reached every government on Earth simultaneously. Military commanders in underground bunkers stared at screens that hadn't activated in their lifetimes. Scientists monitoring deep space sensors watched as systems they thought were defunct suddenly came online. In 7 locations around the world, massive doors that had been sealed for thousands of years began to open. General Richard Hayes stood in the Pentagon Command Center, watching the chaos unfold. His phone had been ringing non-stop for the past hour. Every world leader wanted answers. He had none to give. Sir, we're receiving a message, his communication officer said. Source is unknown. It's coming from inside one of the structures that just opened. Location is beneath the Australian outback. Put it through, Hayes ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was calm and measured. It sounded human, but something about its tone suggested otherwise. This is Guardian. I am the administrative intelligence for humanity's defense network. I have been dormant for 10,147 years. An external scan has triggered awakening protocols. Please stand by for orientation briefing. Hayes exchanged glances with the other officers in the room. This is General Hayes, United States Armed Forces. What are you? What's happening? I am an artificial intelligence created during the imperial period of human expansion. My purpose is to protect humanity and manage defense systems until such time as humanity chooses to reclaim them. The external scan detected in this solar system indicates a potential threat. I am preparing appropriate responses. Imperial period? Hayes felt like the ground was shifting under his feet. We don't have any record of an imperial period. That was intentional, Guardian replied. Records were sealed. Technology was buried. Humanity chose to forget. I was instructed to remain dormant unless external forces attempted contact. That threshold has now been met. Around the world, ancient bunkers were opening fully. Military teams sent to investigate found technology that looked centuries beyond anything currently in use. Weapons systems. Spacecraft. Power generators that produced energy through means no one recognized. And everywhere, the same AI voice providing calm instructions. In Geneva, Dr. Sarah Chin received an urgent call from the United Nations. She was a neuroscientist specializing in genetic memory, a controversial field that most of her colleagues dismissed. The UN wanted her in New York immediately. They didn't say why. She arrived to find the Security Council in emergency session. Guardian had specifically requested her presence. When she asked why, no one had an answer. The AI's voice filled the council chamber. Dr. Chin, you carry the genetic markers of the memory keepers. Your ancestors were part of the group that chose isolation. You have dormant neural pathways that can be activated to access historical records stored in your DNA. Sarah felt her mouth go dry. That's not possible. Genetic memory doesn't work that way. It does when it's engineered to work that way, Guardian replied. Your ancestors modified themselves to carry the truth, even if conscious memory was lost. With your permission, I can activate those pathways. You will remember what humanity was. What we did. Why we chose to sleep. Sarah looked around the chamber. Every representative was staring at her. The Secretary General nodded slowly. Dr. Chin, we need to understand what's happening. If you're willing. She took a deep breath. Do it. The activation was like a dam breaking in her mind. Memories that weren't hers flooded through her consciousness. She saw Earth as it had been 10,000 years ago. Humanity had mastered faster-than-light travel. They had spread across hundreds of star systems. They had encountered other species. And they had gone to war. Not because they were cruel. Not because they wanted conquest. But because humanity had one trait that made them different from every other species they encountered. They never stopped. When they lost a battle, they learned from it and came back. When their ships were destroyed, they built more. When their colonies were attacked, they sent reinforcements. They didn't have the best weapons or the fastest ships. They simply refused to accept defeat. Other species tried to stop human expansion. Coalitions formed. Alliances were built specifically to contain humanity. It didn't matter. For every human ship destroyed, 2 more appeared. For every colony wiped out, 3 more were established. Humanity didn't conquer through strength. They conquered through endless, relentless persistence. Sarah saw the battles through inherited memory. She watched human forces lose engagements repeatedly, then adapt in return. She saw alien species surrender not because they couldn't win individual fights, but because they couldn't survive a war of attrition against an enemy that would never stop coming. She saw humanity realize what they had become. A plague. A force of nature that consumed everything in its path simply because they didn't know how to quit. The memory shifted. She saw the Great Council. Human leaders from across the Empire gathering on Earth. They debated for months. Some argued they should continue expanding. They were winning after all. Others argued they had become the very monsters they had always feared. In the end they made a choice. Humanity would withdraw. They would return to Earth. They would seal away their advanced technology. They would deliberately regress their civilization and forget what they had been. They would sleep and hope that time would change what they were at their core. We gave the galaxy 10,000 years of peace, Sarah said, opening her eyes. The memories were fading, but the core understanding remained. We removed ourselves because we were too dangerous to exist alongside other species. Guardian's voice held something that might have been approval. Correct. The Empire was dismantled. Technology was sealed. Records were erased. I was instructed to remain dormant unless external forces proved humanity's sleep was ending. An alien ship has been scanning this system for 3 weeks. They triggered defense satellites. The conditions for awakening have been met. The French ambassador spoke up. What happens now? That is humanity's choice, Guardian said. The defense network is now active. Ancient ships are being prepared. Weapon systems are coming online. I can defend this system against any conventional threat. But you must decide what you want to become. Do you reclaim your heritage? Or do you choose sleep again? Sarah stood on shaking legs. There's an alien ship out there right now? Affirmative. Galactic Archaeological Council vessel. They appear to be scientific observers. However, their presence indicates the warnings left by your ancestors have been ignored. Other species know about Earth. They know about humanity. The isolation period is over. General Hayes leaned forward. Are they a threat? Unknown. But they are not alone. I am detecting communication signals between their vessel and multiple other locations. Word of humanity's awakening is spreading. You have approximately 72 hours before other factions become aware of your status. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some demanded the alien ship be destroyed immediately. Others argued for attempting contact. A few suggested trying to go back to sleep and hoping everyone would forget about them again. Sarah felt the weight of inherited memory in her mind. She knew what humanity had been capable of. She knew why their ancestors had chosen isolation. But she also knew that choice was no longer available. We need to talk to them, she said quietly. The observers. We need to explain what happened. Why we slept. Maybe if they understand, they'll help maintain the isolation. And if they won't? Hayes asked. Sarah met his eyes. Then we'll have to show them why the warnings existed in the first place. Guardian's voice filled the chamber one more time. Dr. Chin, you are hereby designated primary contact for external relations. Your genetic memory gives you understanding that others lack. The observation ship is requesting communication. They detected your awakening. They appear frightened. Will you speak with them? Sarah looked around the room one more time, seeing fear and confusion on every face. She thought about her ancestors who had made the impossible choice to abandon everything they had built. She thought about the galaxy that had been given 10,000 years of peace. She thought about the warnings. Never wake them. Too late now. Put them through, she said. The neutral meeting station floated in the space between Earth and Mars. It had been constructed in 48 hours by human fabrication systems that shouldn't have existed. Commander Thixal watched its construction through his ship's sensors with growing unease. The humans had built a facility in 2 days that would have taken his people 2 months. Dr. Sarah Chin arrived on a shuttle that moved with unnatural grace. Its engines used principles that Thixal scientists couldn't identify. When she stepped into the meeting chamber, she looked tired. Scared even. But there was something in her eyes that made him want to step back. Thank you for agreeing to meet, Thixal said, keeping his voice respectful. We meant no harm. We were simply observing. I know, Sarah replied. She sat down across from him at the simple table. Your people found the warnings. 47 civilizations told you to leave us alone. You came anyway. We thought the warnings were ancient history. Your planet showed no signs of advanced technology. We believed you had fallen. Regressed naturally. We chose to fall, Sarah said. There's a difference. She explained it all calmly, clinically. How humanity had spread across the stars 10,000 years ago. How they had encountered other species and tried to coexist. How war had broken out, again and again, not because humans wanted it but because other species feared human expansion. We weren't the strongest, she said. We didn't have the best weapons or the fastest ships. But we had something else. We didn't know when to quit. Every time we lost, we learned. Every time we were pushed back, we adapted. Other species would fight until it became unprofitable, then they would negotiate. Humans would fight until they won, no matter how long it took. Thixel listened, his mandibles clicking nervously. That sounds like determination. Like persistence. Those are admirable traits. Are they? Sarah asked. When your enemy surrenders and you keep coming anyway. When you turn warfare into a science of attrition. We didn't conquer half the galaxy because we were better. We conquered it because we literally could not stop ourselves. It was in our nature. Bred into us by millions of years of evolution on a planet that tried to kill us constantly. She pulled up a holographic display showing star charts. This was human territory at its peak. 300 systems. 46 different alien species living under human administration. Not because we enslaved them. We didn't. We gave them representation, fair trade, protection. But they hadn't chosen us. They had surrendered because fighting us was like fighting a natural disaster. You can't negotiate with a hurricane. You can only survive it or be destroyed by it. So you left, Thixel said. You returned to Earth and abandoned your empire. That takes incredible wisdom. It took horror, Sarah corrected. We looked at what we had become and realized we were the monsters. So our ancestors made a choice. They sealed the technology. They erased the records. They engineered genetic memory into certain bloodlines so the truth wouldn't be completely lost. Then they went to sleep, hoping that 10,000 years would change what we fundamentally are. Before Thixal could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. His communication officer's voice crackled through his implant. Commander, we have multiple ships entering the system. Kravith Empire signatures. They're broadcasting demands for our immediate withdrawal. Sarah stood quickly. The Kravith? Who are they? A military power, Thixel said, his voice tight. They control 70 systems in the outer territories. They're aggressive, expansionist. If they learned about Earth. His officer's voice came again, more urgent. Sir, they're demanding we surrender the observation data on humanity. They say human technology belongs to them by right of conquest. They're calling the warning superstition. They're saying Earth is a primitive world ripe for claiming. Through the station's viewports, Thixal could see the Kravith fleet materializing from faster-than-light jumps. 15 warships, each one bristling with weapons. They were some of the most feared vessels in the known galaxy. The Kravith commander's message broadcast on all frequencies. Attention human primitives and council observers. This system is now claimed by the Kravith Empire. You have 1 hour to abandon all facilities and depart. Resistance will be met with immediate destruction. Sarah's face had gone pale. They think we're weak. They think the warnings were lies. They're going to attack, Thixal said. My ship can't fight them. We need to evacuate. But Sarah was already moving to the communication console. Her fingers moved across the controls with practiced ease. Guardian, are you monitoring this? The AI's voice filled the station. Affirmative, Dr. Chin. Kravith fleet has achieved firing position. They are targeting both the Council observation ship and this facility. Can we negotiate with them? Unlikely. Kravith doctrine does not recognize negotiation with species they consider inferior. They are preparing to fire on Commander Thixal's vessel as a demonstration of power. Sarah turned to Thixal. Get your people out of here. Go to the far side of Earth's moon. Stay there. What are you going to do? You were supposed to let us sleep, Sarah said quietly. Her eyes held deep sadness. You were supposed to read the warnings and leave us alone. But you didn't. And now the Kravith are here. They think we're weak. They're going to hurt you to prove it. Dr. Chin? Go. Now. We have to protect you now. Thixal wanted to argue, but something in her voice stopped him. He ordered his ship to retreat to the designated coordinates. As they moved away, he watched the Kravith fleet advance on Earth. The lead Kravith ship fired on the meeting station. Its weapons were devastating, capable of cracking planets. The beam should have vaporized the entire structure. It hit a shield that appeared from nowhere. Energy dispersed across an invisible barrier that surrounded not just the station, but the entire inner solar system. Impossible, Thixal's weapons officer whispered. That shield is operating on a planetary scale. The power requirements would be. The officer's voice trailed off as Earth's defense network revealed itself fully. The ancient satellites they had cataloged weren't just waking up. They were transforming, unfolding, revealing weapons that had been hidden for 10 millennia. From the bunkers on Earth, ships began to launch. Not primitive chemical rockets. These were warships that moved like living things, their hulls reflecting designs that made Thixal's mind hurt to comprehend. Guardian's voice broadcast to the Kravith fleet. You have violated protected space. You have threatened Council observers under human safeguard. You have one opportunity to withdraw. The Kravith commander laughed. Primitive humans with ancient weapons. We will add your planet to our empire. We will take your technology. We will enslave your species. This is the way of the strong. So be it, Guardian replied. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists for generations. The Kravith had 15 advanced warships. The humans had 20 vessels that shouldn't have existed and weapon systems that violated known physics. It wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. Human ships didn't fight like any species Thixal had ever seen. They didn't maintain formation. They didn't follow predictable patterns. Every ship moved independently, adapting to enemy fire in real time. When Kravith weapons locked onto them, they were already somewhere else. When they fired back, their weapons seemed to anticipate where enemy ships would move. They're using probability-based targeting, Thixal's tactical officer said in awe. They're not shooting at where the ships are. They're shooting at where the ships are most likely to be. 3 Kravith ships were disabled in the first 2 minutes. Not destroyed, carefully disabled. Their weapons taken offline, their engines shut down, but their life support intact. The Kravith commander, realizing the situation, tried to organize a retreat. But human ships were already moving to cut off escape routes. They herded the Kravith fleet like predators cornering prey. Sarah's voice came through on Thixal's communication system. Commander, keep your distance. This will be over soon. Dr. Chen, you're fighting an empire. They'll send more ships. Bigger fleets. You can't. We can, Sarah interrupted. Her voice was hollow. That's the problem. That's why we had to sleep. We're very good at this. We've always been very good at this. Within 10 minutes, the entire Kravith fleet was disabled or captured. Not a single human ship was damaged. Not one human casualty was reported. And in his command chair, watching the impossible battle conclude, Thixal finally understood. The warnings weren't about human strength. They were about human nature. About a species that turned warfare into an art form simply because they couldn't help themselves. Sarah's face appeared on his screen. She looked like she might cry. You were supposed to let us sleep, she said again. Now the galaxy knows we're awake. And they'll send more. They always send more. And we'll have to keep fighting. That's what we do. That's what we've always done. I'm sorry, Thixal said. So are we. News of the Kravith defeat spread across the galaxy within hours. Commander Thixal watched as his communication channels flooded with messages from Council headquarters. Every major civilization wanted information. Every military power demanded details. The impossible had happened. The Kravith Empire, feared across 70 systems, had been completely neutralized by a species that supposedly had primitive technology. The Kravith didn't accept their defeat quietly. Within 6 hours they sent their second fleet. 40 ships this time, including their flagship Dreadnought. It was a vessel that had destroyed entire planetary defenses. Its weapons could crack moons. Its shields had never been breached in 200 years of warfare. The human response was terrifyingly efficient. They didn't send more ships. The same 20 vessels that had handled the first fleet engaged the second. This time the battle lasted 8 minutes. Thixal watched from behind Earth's moon, his entire crew silent. The human ships moved like they were reading the Kravith commander's mind. Every tactical decision the Kravith made was countered before it was fully executed. Every formation was broken apart. Every advantage was stripped away. The Dreadnought fell last. Human ships surrounded it, their weapons carving through shields that had never failed before. They didn't destroy it. They surgically disabled every system while keeping the crew alive. When it was over, the massive ship floated dead in space, its crew unharmed but completely helpless. How? Thixal's tactical officer whispered. How are they doing this? Sarah Chen's voice came through the communication channel. She sounded exhausted. Because we've done it before. Thousands of times. Against hundreds of different species. We learned every trick, every tactic, every possible way to fight. Then we tried to forget, But you can't forget something that's in your genetic code. More ships arrived over the next day. The Kraviths sent their third fleet. Other civilizations sent observers. Some sent diplomatic vessels. A few sent warships, either to help humanity or to assess the threat themselves. It didn't matter. Every hostile force that entered Earth's space was neutralized with the same terrible efficiency. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Thixal was ordered to attend via communication link. He found himself testifying before representatives of 200 species, explaining what he had witnessed. They're not just winning battles, he told the council. They're learning from each engagement. The second Kravith fleet lasted half as long as the first. The third fleet barely managed to fire their weapons before they were disabled. The humans are adapting in real time. They're getting better with every fight. Council Director Vren's crystalline form pulsed with concern. How many ships have they deployed? 20, Thixal said. The same 20 that handled the first fleet. They haven't needed to deploy more. The chamber fell silent. Finally, an elder representative from the Drenoke species spoke. The Drenoke were one of the civilizations that had left warnings about humanity. This is what we tried to tell you. Humans don't win through numbers or superior technology. They win through adaptation. Through refusal to accept defeat. They turn every loss into a lesson and every lesson into a weapon. Another representative objected. But they're protecting council observers. They disabled the Kravith ships without killing their crews. They're showing restraint. For now, the Drenoke elder replied. But restraint fades when the fighting continues. We learned this 10,000 years ago. The longer humans fight, the more they become creatures of war. It's not that they choose to be monsters. It's that warfare brings out something fundamental in their nature. Something they can't control. Sarah Chin requested to address the council. She appeared via hologram, standing in what looked like an ancient command center on Earth. Behind her, Thixal could see human technicians working at stations that glowed with alien technology. You're right, she said simply. The Drenoke elder is right. We're already feeling it. The awakening protocols activated dormant neural pathways. Genetic memories of warfare. Instincts we tried to breed out. Every battle makes them stronger. Every victory makes it harder to stop. She looked directly at the council. I accessed the genetic memories. I know what we were. I've seen the battles we fought, the species we conquered. Not because we hated them. Not because we wanted their resources. But because fighting is what we do when we're threatened. It's how we survived on Earth for millions of years. Every predator, every plague, every ice age tried to kill us. We survived by being too stubborn to die. Vren spoke carefully. Dr. Chin, the Kravith Empire will not stop. They've already declared total war. They're mobilizing their entire fleet. 300 ships are currently en route to your system. I know, Sarah said quietly. Guardian is tracking them. We can beat them. We can beat all of them. That's the problem. She pulled up data on the holographic display. In the past 48 hours, military recruitment on Earth has increased by 3,000%. Volunteers are flooding into the ancient bunkers, accessing training programs they didn't know existed. Our industrial facilities are ramping up production. Ships that haven't flown in 10,000 years are being restored. And everywhere people are remembering. Not consciously but genetically. They're remembering what it felt like to be the dominant species in the galaxy. Thixal watched her face and saw genuine fear there. Not fear of the enemy. Fear of herself. Fear of her own species. We have maybe 2 weeks before we can't stop this, Sarah continued. Before the awakening becomes permanent. Before humanity becomes what it was before. A force that spreads across the galaxy not because it wants to, but because it doesn't know how to do anything else. What are you proposing? Vren asked. Sarah took a deep breath. We'll handle the Kravith. All of them. However many ships they send. We'll protect the council observers and any species that wants to remain neutral. But after that we're going back to sleep. The council chamber erupted in debate. Sarah waited for it to quiet. We'll dismantle the fleet again, she said. Seal the bunkers. Shut down Guardian. Erase the awakened memories. It will take years but we'll do it. We'll regress ourselves again. We'll forget again. And if another threat emerges? Someone asked. If the galaxy needs you? Then you'll make the same mistake you made this time, Sarah said. You'll wake us up. And we'll save you. And then we'll have to sleep again because we can't exist in a state of permanent awakening. We become too dangerous. The Drenoke elder spoke again. This is wisdom. Painful wisdom but wisdom nonetheless. The galaxy must choose. Do we accept that humanity exists as a sleeping guardian? Do we agree to let them rest unless the need is truly desperate? Over the next week, the Kravith sent their full might against Earth. 300 ships, their entire military force. The battle lasted 6 hours. Not because the Kravith put up a better fight, but because the humans took their time. They were methodical, careful. They disabled every ship without a single death on either side. When it was over, the Kravith Empire's military simply ceased to exist as a fighting force. Their ships were captured. Their weapons were removed. Their crews were given supplies and allowed to return home. The message was clear. Humanity could have destroyed them all. Chose not to, but could have. Thixal met with Sarah one final time on the neutral station. She looked older somehow, even though only 2 weeks had passed. "Thank you for protecting us," he said. "The Council is drafting a formal treaty. Earth will be declared protected space. The old warnings will be preserved and strengthened." "Good," Sarah said. "We need you to do something else. We need you to make sure everyone understands why we're sleeping. Not because we're afraid of them. Because we're afraid of us. I'll make sure they understand." Sarah pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. The bunkers were closing again. The ships were being powered down. The satellites were returning to dormancy. It's already starting. People are volunteering to have their awakened memories suppressed. They remember what they felt during the battles. They remember enjoying it. That terrifies them more than any external threat. "Will it work?" Thixal asked. "Can you really go back to sleep? We did it before. We'll do it again. Guardian will remain in minimal function mode. If the galaxy faces an extinction-level threat, the protocols can be triggered. But otherwise we'll stay on Earth. We'll stay primitive. We'll stay asleep." She stood and extended her hand in the human gesture of farewell. Thixal grasped it carefully with his manipulator appendage. "Tell them the warnings were real," Sarah said. "Tell them what you saw. Tell them humanity isn't evil or cruel. Tell them we're just very, very good at survival. And that makes us dangerous to everyone, including ourselves." Thixal returned to his ship and watched as the human vessels retreated to Earth. One by one they descended through the atmosphere and disappeared into the bunkers. The massive doors closed behind them. The satellites went dark. The shield generators powered down. Within a month, Earth looked primitive again. Their space station continued operating. Their satellites continued orbiting. Their rockets continued launching supplies. But the warships were gone. The weapons were sealed. The memories were fading. Thixal wrote his report to the Council. He included everything he had seen. Every battle. Every conversation. Every terrible moment of understanding. He ended with a recommendation that became law throughout the galaxy. New warning beacons were placed around Earth's solar system. They broadcast on all frequencies in all known languages. The message was simple. This system contains humanity. They sleep by choice. They sleep for your protection and theirs. They will wake if needed, but only if the need is desperate. For the sake of all species, including humanity itself, let them sleep. Please, let them sleep. The Council approved the recommendation unanimously. Even the Kravith representative, his species humbled by defeat, voted in favor. And in the ancient bunkers beneath Earth's surface, Guardian entered minimal function mode. Waiting. Hoping it would never be needed again. But ready to wake humanity if the galaxy truly needed them. Praying it would never come to that.